Okay, we are finally here. We are finally about to do the video on your questions about the Supernote. Several of you had questions that have been lingering. Some of them are very hard to answer in comments. So I decided, let's make a video. Let's do this YouTube thing. So, we have our questions here. Let's organize ourselves here. Jesus. Okay, let's start out with these questions here. We have 3 questions from Andy Luke 1366. First one, can you use the digest and bracket feature in an EPUB, on EPUB books, I should say? So I'm just going to do all this live so you can actually not only have my answers but see what it looks like to do these things. And also we'll just like to navigate the device. I think, a lot of the videos they cut and paste, they edit to make things snappier, but in the process we lose a little bit of the information on what it's like to actually move around in the device. So hopefully this can help to alleviate some of that. We want to look at an EPUB, and I have, these are mostly PDFs, but I have, if I go into the right folder, we might go to the right place. I thought I did. Guess I didn't. Okay. I think it's right here. EPUB. So as you can see, I put some stuff here. If you're going to export, you're asking first about this feature. Now this is going to be separate for people watching who are not Andy Luke, who maybe don't understand the 2 different versions of export. One version of export, which we will talk about later, is when you export this, the annotations, the things that you have written, the highlights you've made, you export those to a PDF. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, can you see right there, those brackets around number 16? And those are created by, see right here on author's note, I'm going to draw, oops, I'm using the highlighter. That is one problem I have all the time. It's not a flaw with the device, it's a flaw with the human. I'm always on the highlighter when I think I'm on the pen. Okay, can you see the bracket that I've drawn there? I'm doing this instead of screen sharing it because the screen sharing thing is new, and to be honest, I think it's more interesting to see the things happening on the actual device. As I said, I want you to get a feel for what this is actually like to use in the process of me answering these questions. So what we're going to do is draw another one there, and you see how it automatically changed to that. What that does is it's saying I want to add this to the digest. And what the digest is going to do is going to extract the text from these and then put them into here, digest. Boom. There's all the books that I have digests of. As you can see, this book in the PDF form, I did 81. This is the EPUB we're doing. So as you can see, yes, the EPUB does work for the digest bracket feature. And it looks exactly the same when you go into it. So if you're looking to use EPUBs as opposed to PDFs and you want to use this digest feature, maybe you're going to export this to Obsidian or something like that, yes, you can. What's our next question? I know one can hyperlink in the notes, but I was wondering if you can do that within a handwritten annotation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. Actually, let's go to journal note. Okay, so what we're talking about here is Andy Luke is saying that she's aware, or actually I shouldn't say she, I'm not even positive, that they are aware that you can make this into a link. So you would, where's my lasso? Oh, oops. When you have something saved, copied, or cut in your lasso, the lasso glyph turns into this paste glyph. So sometimes you look for the lasso and you forget. So I'll clear the clipboard. Now I have the lasso tool. Same tool, it's just loaded and unloaded. This is what it looks like empty. So I would circle it and then I would hyperlink. Now this works in notes. She's wondering if, I said she again, they are wondering if, where was the last open document? If we can hyperlink within the annotations that we make in a book. So let's find out. No. Only options you get are paste, cut, and make something into a keyword. So unfortunately not. That would be a neat feature to be able to link to other pages in the book. Maybe that's something that Supernote will add eventually. And Luke, one more question on the back. I just read a forum comment saying that the Annotation Digest export, which is what we were just talking about. Actually, it is not what we were just talking about. It is the export of this, the page with these annotations, and not this feature. So I need to clarify that. That's why I underlined this. There is a difference between annotation and digest, which I think Andy Luke knows, but you guys may not. These will go into the digest function. So this is the digest function. Annotation function is this, anything with handwriting. And when you annotate, when you export your annotation, you export the full page. It's not just going to take this part. It's going to send the whole page. You can send the whole book with annotations, or you can just send the pages that you've annotated out to export. Or you can select specific pages as well. So back to the question. We're talking about annotation here, so we're going to ignore digest. I just read on a forum comment saying that the annotation export quality is low, i.e. the handwriting and scribble turned out jagged in the PDF export to the point of rendering it unreadable in cases. Has that been the case for you? It has not been the case for me because I haven't got to the point where I look at my exports on my PDF annotations yet. So I did some for the video. There are two forms that you can export. Actually, let's go back to the camera. I want to show you that first. When we go to, let's go to this real quick. Okay, export. As you can see here, there are several options. Original and vector. These will have dramatically different results. The rest of this stuff, essentially what it's asking you is when you annotate or when you send out your annotations, the text obviously is going to stay black on white. But the stuff that you wrote, like that scribble that I have there, do you want that just to be whatever grayscale color you chose? You know, because you can do black, dark gray, lighter gray. Or do you want it to be shades of blue or shades of red? So for example, if you were correcting something you'd written, maybe you want to use red to export it. And then here's what I was saying. You can select all pages with annotations, or customize, which would be to select specific pages. Like I just want page, the example I give here, just give me page 1, pages 4 through 6, and page 8. Okay? What we're going to talk about here, the reason I went back into this is we're going to talk about the difference between the export of the vector and the original. So going over to the examples. Okay, here we are with the regular export. This is pretty small size here. Let's move this up a little bit. Let's zoom in and take a look. How's that coming across? So far, so good. If you export to about this size, which is, I know you can't see my whole screen here, but that's taking up about 80% of my screen. So that's pretty good size. And this is the MacBook Air. So for most points, this writing size will be fine. This is fine, although I probably wouldn't use that tip size. This is the smallest tip size available. It does get a little difficult. This is 0.3. By the way, this is 0.5 up here. I forgot to say that. My handwriting got sloppy here. This is not conversion problems. This is me. This is human error. But can you see a little bit of jaggedness there? Yeah. Let's get in even more. Whoops. Wrong direction. There you go. Does it get jagged? Yes, it does. Does it get jagged because Supernote did something wrong? No. It gets jagged because this is a pixel. This is a JPEG, essentially, export, even though it's to PDF. This is exporting similar to a JPEG. In other words, it's exporting the pixels. Without going into explanation, Pixel just says, this square is this color. And the reason it gets jagged is because you created those pixels when the squares were this size, which here they're smooth. But with those same squares, if they're going to stay the same squares, when you zoom in, they will be jagged, because now you're going to be able to start seeing the actual squares, the actual pixels. This is where the word pixelated comes from. So does it get jagged? Of course it does on the regular export, because it's using pixels. But is it illegible? I don't think so. Look how sloppy I got there. I mean, to be honest, if you're super worried about legibility, slow down. It's not going to be 100% the export that makes something illegible. It's going to be a mixture of the export and the speed of your handwriting, and whether you put a lot of effort into legibility. So if you took time and wrote slower and it looked more like this, which is still, I mean, that's a sloppy R, you're going to be fine. And that's the regular export. But what about the vector export? Well, some of you might know the difference between vector and pixel, but essentially, whereas the other one is saying this square is this color, this a vector essentially says this vector or this area is this color, and it's going to add or subtract as many squares or pixels as it needs to fill that area in, so it doesn't get bumpy and jagged. Vector is the same thing that you would use to all the graphic design. You know, you see the nice graphic designs that people do with shapes and so forth that you see as like logos and stuff like that. That's all done with vectors so that it can be blown up to larger or smaller sizes without the pixelation problem. So you're not going to see that here, but you are going to see something else. You're going to see smoothing. So for example, let's go back over here. I want you to, I don't think I showed you what that pixelation looks like on the highlight. Okay, see how it gets bumpy there? Well, check it out. It's smooth. See that? Zoom in one more. It's smoothed over. And this handwriting looks so much better than my actual handwriting because of the way that vector works. Vector says this area, but vector as well is working on the information provided to it at the size that you drew it. I drew it at this size. So it said, okay, these are the curves. And at this size, it doesn't need as many details as it does up close. So when you zoom in order to compensate for the added or the need for the added detail, instead of creating squares and pixels, it creates smooth curved lines. So you're going to get a smoothing effect, which most people will like. Even with this, it gets a little weird because it gets real thin on some of these, but it makes your handwriting look a little bit better. So if you're super worried about legibility, two things I would recommend if you're going to export: slow down and export to vector. Still going to come out of PDF. It's just about how it's processed. And I'm not sure why they do it both ways. I'm sure there's a reason. Somebody wanted it both ways. I'm not the expert to tell you that. But does it get pixelated? Yes, on the regular export. No, on the vector export. Does it get illegible or unusable? No, I don't believe so on either. But of course, in this case, and even in this case, it would be dependent upon your handwriting. This piece down here being a good example. This is me real sloppy. You can't even tell if that's T-O-G-T or T-E-S-T. But if I'd written that on paper, I'd have the same problem. So is the Supernote making that worse? No. Okay, back to the device. Now we have a question from Football Forever 123, a very enthusiastic name. When reading EPUBs, PDFs, and taking notes, do you ever find yourself needing more light or looking for a better light source? Now, I already answered him, but I want to answer this for you guys. The answer is yes. Supernote is not backlit, which is, in my opinion, one of the advantages of this, because dealing with the Supernote is very close to dealing with a book. And what I mean by that is sometimes you need more light to read a book, and sometimes you need more light to read this. It's not any more or any less than a book in general, except, of course, that most books are whiter than this, so the text is a little bit easier to read in darker circumstances. But what we're going to do right now is I'm going to turn off the studio light. Still pretty readable. Turn off this desk light. And then I have a window over there. So this is just natural daylight on kind of a cloudy day. As readable as a piece of paper. But if it gets darker, yeah, you can't read this in bed with the lights off. And that's just something you have to accept. But I say it's an advantage because you don't get the same problems with eye strain or the effects that screens have on our eyes and our brains, especially before bed. So that's up to you whether that matters or not, but the answer is yes. And then lastly, we have a bunch of questions from Brick and Stones 6892, who from his little avatar has a sweet looking, healthy looking beard. Bravo to you, sir. Okay, can you do things like, and then we have a list. Can you create folders and subfolders? The answer is yes. As you can see, here's my document folder. All of these are subfolders. But let's just do this. Let's go to the article archive, and here's a subfolder in a subfolder. And that's what it looks like to create one. So the answer is yes. Now you can use this back button, or you can use this to jump around the breadcrumbs. Next question. Can you do things like headings, subheadings, shortcuts? Sort of. I'm not sure if it's going to be what you want, because I imagine what you want is actually, you know what? I made a test file for these to make it a little easier. And it is test 1. Okay. So I believe what he's asking is, can I make this into a title? This is how you would make it into a title. Let you see what all those look like. We're going to hit the little T. Hit that T, and then we have some color options. What do you want it to look like? So let's go with this black with white. Now that's a title. Can I also, after making that a title, make that into a link? No. Because the moment I lasso something that's linked or a title, it asks me if I want to delete it, because we can only do one thing to that at a time. But see, I chose the black on title. Let's make this a subtitle, and let's choose this, a little color difference. So we have a visual difference on the page now. If we go here and we go into the titles section, we do have we have links. These will take us, if I'm on a different page and I hit that subtitle, boom, it's going to take me to that page. If I hit that title, it's going to take me to that page. Now in this case, when they're on the same page, it's not as useful, but if these were on separate pages, I could jump between them using the menu option. And this is your actual handwriting that shows here. So as I said, the question is sort of. I'm not sure if that's the behavior that you want, but you can jump between titles and subtitles. And I do find this pretty nice, because if you need to jump to, maybe you're writing a paper, I need section 6 right now. Boom, you can hit section 6 and jump to it. So there's that one. What else do we have? Hyperlink within and externally. So I think he means, can you hyperlink between, oops, I did not want to do that. Can you hyperlink between files or pages within the Supernote? And then the second part of the question, can you hyperlink to things outside? In other words, to URLs. And the answer to both is yes. So if we go back to this, here's that link icon. If I click that, you have three styles, you know, maybe one an underline, maybe, I'm not sure what the difference between these two is. Let's see. Let's choose something. So I'm showing you right now how you link it internally. So I'm going to select, I can either select a file or I can select a page. So let's go to a file. Okay. So that's what that looks like. Looks like it keeps a box around it. This one, we're going to link to something externally. So we're going to go over to the link and we're going to choose this style. I think the difference is, actually it's hard to see. You guys might even be able to see it better than me. This is a dotted box and this is a solid box. And that one's an underline, obviously. But as you can see here, other things you can do. Another page in the current file. So if you're on page 7, you want to link to page 12. Recent files, that's anything you've been working with recently. Existing files, that's everything. And then web page. So web page. And then you would, how about Google? That's the question. The URL everybody uses as a sample. And there you go. Now what happens when you click these things? Boom. I went to the file. Now I can go back using the back arrow. And then let's see what happens when I hit that one. If I hit that one. There you go. You can't even see the search box. Subtleties of color. But yes, you can link internally and externally. Of course, that external link is going to be more useful in a PDF when it's transferred to a computer than it is to browse the web here. Okay, next thing. Can you merge files or rearrange pages? Let's start with rearrange pages. See this 4 squares? Right there, 4 squares. We're going to hit that. Here's our pages. Anybody that's moved pages in a PDF will recognize this as familiar. So I have our first page. I have page 2 that says second page. And I said on the third one, I said, wait, no, this is the real page 2. So that's what it looks like. Okay, let's go back in there. I didn't mean to do it. Long press. And we're going to either move or insert before or after. And what insert before or after would be, can I throw a page between these two or a page here? But we want to move it, right? And we want to move it after. We can use before or after here. I can either say I want it after page 1 or I want it before page 2. It's going to put it in the same place. Okay. Now hit OK. Moving. And there we go. It is now the second page, and that's the third page. The other question, can you merge files? No. You cannot go into the file thing and say this notebook and this notebook. But what you can do is you can move pages from one notebook into another. So what you would do in this case is you would copy or cut the current page. In this case, we will copy it. And then you're going to want to go out and go to the file you want to add it to. You're going to go here and you're going to either insert the page before the current one or insert the page after the current one. So let's insert after. think I did something wrong. I did. Paste page. See, I don't use these features very often, so there it is. So now we have this. We have the blank page that I accidentally created on accident, and then we have the page that I copied. So you cannot merge whole files, but you can move things. So for example, if you had something in here, you had a page in here, and you wanted it over here, you would cut it and paste it. If you want it in both places, obviously you copy, but that's as close to merging as you're going to get. And then the last question that we have is there a certain program where you write certain words, letters several times to improve TXT to word translation accuracy? So what he's talking about here is some of the early text recognition software had a training area so that it could learn your specific handwriting. Most of that stuff was before the developments in AI. So to be brief on the answer to that question, no, there isn't anything to do that, but I don't think you really need it here because it's pretty good. So for example, let's go here. So here's some pretty sloppy fast writing, even sloppier. And then we tried a really sloppy cursive. I mean, that doesn't even look like it says cursive. It looks like an L. And then this one, yeah, it kind of looks like cursive, but it's still pretty sloppy. Let's see what happens. Sloppy, yeah, the messy one, the real messy one with the L, it got a canine. And then that second handwriting, cursive sloppy, it got it. So I'd say it's pretty accurate, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. I don't have the best handwriting, especially on this device. The pen, my actual handwriting is better with a real pen. Here it doesn't render so well, but let's see how that works. Not bad. It missed the N on second. Let's see what that looked like. And you can kind of see why. My N's connected to the D. It doesn't look much like an N. So you might have to be a little careful, but in my opinion, if you're writing for something to be converted to text, you should be taking your time with it to some degree anyways, knowing that it's going to happen. It's a reality. And I'm not sure any amount of training is going to compensate for sloppy handwriting, because sloppy handwriting in general is different every time you do it. That's why it's sloppy. If you had specific ways of making characters, like for example, maybe you do your E's like that, you don't have to worry about it. It knows it's going to make it capitalized, but maybe in the context of something else, like some other letters, let's see what happens. Is that going to recognize that as lowercase? Yes, it will. So the AI does a pretty good job. You just have to be a little more cautious with your lettering. If you look and you go, I probably wouldn't know what that said either, then the machine's probably not going to know. The other thing that's important to note is that this writing to text conversion only works in certain notebooks. What? Okay, so when we go to create a notebook, we have two options, standard and real-time recognition. If you want to convert your handwriting to text, you need to choose real-time recognition. The standard one is just going to be for sloppy notes that are going to stay exactly the way they look. You're not going to be converting those, at least not with the Supernote. So those are your questions on the Supernote, and those are my answers. And hopefully, seeing me navigate around this, you get maybe an idea more of what it's like to use this. I mentioned in my, I don't know if you guys saw the video. I just recently did a video. It's technically a podcast, but it's really just a video of me talking about little odds and ends. And one of the things I talked about in that, things that, when I say odds and ends, things are too small to be their own videos, so I put them all together. And one of those things I mentioned is I haven't actually been using my Supernote. So I loved answering these questions because it took me a little while to remember how to do certain things, and I had to learn how to do some other things. And to reiterate for some of you who may not go watch the other video to find out the reason I haven't been using my Supernote is because I am living in the analog world again, and I don't know, I feel more in touch. That's probably going to be, you know, like anything else, maybe a phase that I go in and out of. I always have, so this is not going anywhere. I'm doing this now. In a couple months I might be back to this, and then back to this, and then that's just the way I am. Hope that answered your questions. If you have any more Supernote questions, shoot them. You know, shoot them over. I might have an answer, or I might have to go figure it out. But it's fun to play around with this device. I still love this device. I still recommend it. I think it's for handwriting notes and for reading PDFs and so forth. I think it's the best. So that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.